Hey,
What's up?
looks like a fun place to be.
Yeah, it's nice. Pretty breezy though.
That's why you're wearing a sweatshirt.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Also, it's cold in New York, so
It's true. It's like 50s this morning, which is crazy.
it's messed up.
How did it drop so quickly? As a reminder, please sign in on the agenda sheet. Get started in 2 minutes. All right, are we waiting for anybody else? Probably good. First thing on the agenda is review outstanding RFCs. I will share my screen. Everybody see that? So we have a draft here. Anything, does this need any kind of attention?
I think that Tim has still looking into a couple of just like questions that are in the original draft and trying to get those resolved. I don't know exactly where he is right now on this.
And the next one is dependency server RFC. Looks like about 2 weeks ago, Ben, you pointed out that there was a remove the template by accident.
Yeah, we're still waiting for Mark to come back from vacation to just fix this up since it's on a fork in his account.
Got it. Wait till he gets back, and then RFC for dependency mappings.
I think this one's waiting on your approval, Steven.
And this was just what dependencies look like in the thing. Yep, I just haven't hit the button yet. I like that one. Okay. Cool. And anything else? RFC wise, are there any? Sorry, go ahead.
I actually had a quick question. I'm putting together an RFC about a workflow to have a staging site for the Paketo website and as well as a production site so that we can shop around updates to it in a more effective way than telling people to run a series of CLI commands and then host it on their machine. Where would you like me to put that RFC? Would you like me to just localize that into the Paketo website sort of area, or do you want me to pose that to this place as a whole? The only thing that we'd have to do is we have to set up some C names for the website. So
Do we have like a learning team or like a sub team that's around ensuring our documentation is together? I forget if we have one on the cloud and Buildpacks side.
We have a content team.
That it'd probably be good RFC for that sub team.
Okay, cool. I'll just check it there then. I just wanted to know.
But Ben, does that make sense to you? Or... Yeah, you mean
Yep, that sounds fine to me.
Cool. Sounds good. And anything else before we move on to, or I guess if there are other RFCs people want to chat about in the individual language group repos, please add that to the agenda doc this week. And we'll start at the next item, which is NodeJS family no longer using tini.
Yeah, I put this in here because Stephen, you and I had a quick chat about this, and I figured that we should have a chat about it, not between just you and us, you and myself. So we tried introducing tini to allow us to use npm start. We have discovered that tini does not actually necessarily always work to kill all of the processes that are spun up by npm. npm is very resilient in its fact that it wants to let processes live. We have decided to stop using tini. I think we'll keep the build pack around. We might actually move it into community. I haven't quite decided yet, but in the meantime, we are replicating what npm and yarn start do by investigating the package.json and then running pre-start and start commands. And if those don't exist, we just do node server.js as our start command, because if you just execute that, looks like everything's cleaned up for you pretty nicely. But Stephen, you mentioned that we might not want to do that.
It was more, I guess, a philosophical thing. So pulling the start command out of package.json from the location that npm start would execute it at, and then like attempting to recreate the behavior of npm start, it feels like it's a lot of magic that the user might not expect. That like I'm not aware of any other tooling that looks in package.json and tries to pull commands out of it and execute them separately, right? It's like that's the configuration for npm start, and the user's expectations would be that if you run npm start, it starts that, runs the processes in there in the order defined by npm, right? I wonder if it'd be better if we do something simpler and just let the user specify a start command, somewhere outside of that.
Do we have an idea of how, like, I generally believe that, or agree with Stephen on that like trying to replicate something that another tool does is almost certainly going to get us into trouble. Do we have an idea of how often like npm has changed what it does for these sort of alias commands?
I think that's part of why I'm worried about it is they've changed some of the pre-start and post-start logic over time, and like whether things get executed in shell or not. And so like I'm not suggesting that I have an idea for a better interface, but it seems like if they're saying npm
Yeah.
start isn't, one thing for us you mentioned before is npm start isn't really intended for production. And so if you have a command in there that's like the command for starting your app that's for use with npm start, it's not intended for production, is it really the best command for us to use to run the image in the end?
Yeah.
I'm not saying you don't do it. I'm just saying, it seems like maybe we could get away with doing something simpler that doesn't require, like, creating this abstraction on top of the, or alternate way of, reading package JSON and executing it.
Yeah. Like I think being conservative here is probably the way to go, at least initially, right? Like if there is a better command for us to run, one that is more manageable, that doesn't involve us replicating the interior logic of npm, let's do that and let people complain and sort of build on top of that once we see the complaints and we think we have a safe way to do it. But being predictable about this and not replicating code that's out of our control, I think, is the responsible way to attack it.
So I'm not quite sure so are we saying that we should just go ahead and run npm start and wait for people to complain that we're running a command that does whatever, or should we just run none of the pre-start logic and just run node server.js as if there are no commands in package.json?
I'd say either default to node server.js or have another Buildpacks specific way of specifying the start command. As terrible as that seems, and that we're creating another interface, like I think
just set up a proc file if they really want it.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
yeah.
I was wondering why we haven't sort of included the proc file build pack in all of the language groups anyways.
So like proc file is great. It allows you to override the start command. But as we started to move towards being way more conservative in what we actually include in the launch image, proc file doesn't have any controls. So you say, like, given the fact that you've said node server.js as the web process in your proc file, therefore we know we have to ensure that node is available during launch, right? That's the other kind of reasoning for having these start command build packs, is that they're able to actually interrogate the contents of the app to say, like, I know that this for a fact needs to be in the launch image, instead of just aggressively always saying include launch, include node in launch.
Got it. So the problem is that we're using the start command in package JSON as a key for knowing that this is supposed to be a runnable app, as opposed to some static assets that you want to build and then like host with Nginx.
Yeah.
So is there another indication you can use in package JSON that suggests this is a server side app as opposed to some static assets you want to build?
Not that I know of. I mean, we can continue to look into it. We could also build our own interface for doing this. We just get into a position of, like, currently the behavior is like, if you have in your package JSON a script start field, which lots of folks are doing just as a convention already, then this just works. Versus we're gonna have to build our own thing, and it's like, okay, you have to add this new file that maybe you're not familiar with, add some more fields to it, just to get your app to like build for the very first time.
What's the prior art out in the world? Like, what did Google's Buildpacks and Heroku's Buildpacks do around this?
I haven't looked at that. We should.
Yeah.
It seems like probably don't need to make a decision here, but maybe that's some good next steps. I think I'm actually a little bit less concerned about this particular decision. If like a lot of other build packs read that command as a shorthand way of doing things, it's more in general, for the past generation of build packs, we had focused on like creating an abstraction on top of language tooling, right? Because it's built into this integrated platform, right? And a lot of the features we have were convenience feed, like kind of abstractions around existing language tooling. And I think that made things very hard to understand for end users who are used to their language tooling, because it wasn't very transparent. And so like I'm not saying we aren't already moving in this direction, but it might, like for the next generation of Buildpacks, I wonder if we could look at it more like, the value we add is supplements the existing language tooling instead of tries to build up on top of it. And this kind of struck me as like we're building an abstraction on top of npm start now, if that makes sense. I don't know if that's helpful or a way other people have been thinking about it.
Google's Buildpacks run npm start, at least for npm.
Interesting.
So then they don't handle graceful shutdown any better than we do today.
I wonder what
That
Heroku
is
does.
the implication, yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, has anyone complained about this grateful shutdown thing, or is it?
Yeah,
have-
so we had I think it was a PA, Cora, who came in the channel and was indicating that we don't support graceful shutdown in our containers on Node. That's how we first became aware of the issue.
Yeah, and she'd be the person. She drove a lot of the graceful shutdown features on the Spring Boot side as well to make sure that that all looked good.
It's definitely been a problem in Cloud Foundry before too. Like we even had there was a Diego issue once where we weren't shutting everything down correctly and messed up a lot of databases. So it's definitely an important thing. But it's hard to get right for sure. Seems like next steps are maybe do a little more research.
So the fact that Tini had one job and doesn't appear to do that job particularly well, is there like no thought that we should be trying to improve Tini to be better and compensate for the stuff that NPM does?
I doubt it's a teeny problem. It's probably just NPM is bad at launching processes that are owned by its P group or whatever. But it might be worth looking into that too. Forrest, you mentioned some documentation that said you shouldn't use npm start anyways for production. So that's pretty good evidence that we,
So basically what everything that they've said is like, yeah, you can use npm for all this stuff, and npm start is great as a developer tool, but like their official messaging is like,
Who's they?
npm as far
Okay.
is that if you want this graceful shutdown process management thing to happen, then you should run the node commands yourself. At least that's as far as I can find when I, sift through GitHub documents of them saying not gonna fix. So I wouldn't, as much as like maybe we sort of just surface that. And keep using npm start, because I think that people just use npm start anyway.
Yeah, but I mean, like, so the decrease in usability, I think we should be sensitive to that. But like one of the core selling points of Buildpacks is we codify best practices, right? We go to our partners and we say, hey, you know how to run New Relic best. You tell, you put it in a build pack and everybody will run it with the way you think it is. And so there's an avenue for saying, yeah, it's not as convenient, but the node community says you should do this thing and we are codifying that as a best practice. So like there is some defensibility in that bad UX or less optimal UX.
I think that we've gone with this decision to do this for now. We can move to something else in the future. We're just trying to unblock ourselves and move forward.
Yeah. Maybe see what Heroku does, but then if it's not anything particularly clever, it doesn't solve the problem, then just use the command like we're doing from package.json.
Does Heroku have any actual just cloud native build packs, or do they just have shimmed V2A build packs?
But I'm pretty sure, well, they're making their build pack support both, which is shim-like, but not necessarily a shim. That was the last I heard. But I don't think it even needs to particularly be a cloud native build pack. Like any
Yeah.
build pack ever written against Node.js doesn't use npm start, right? Because if it does, it's not compensating for this regardless of what platform it was running on.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll take a look.
Cool. So if not interesting,
It looks like Heroku just calls npm start
yeah, not
in
that
their
surprising.
in their node build pack.
Some days it's easy to forget, like, we fight internally about how good things are, but we are so far ahead of like these kinds of really fine-grained enterprise details than anybody else's build packs. Like, we are very good at this.
Definitely a selling point for our build pack.
Paketo.
All right, next on the list is there's a Paketo tag on Stack Overflow.
Yeah, I just found out about this morning. Just thought everyone should know. There's a tag for Paketo. You can check it out.
Do we want to hook up all of the plumbing to have, like, to take ownership of it and manage it and get notifications for it, like into like a Slack channel or something?
That'd be cool.
Ben, are you volunteering for that?
I'll report back in a couple of weeks. Since I know the Spring team has a huge automation flow around it, they can at least tell me what's possible.
Who are the maintainers on the content team?
It's like myself, Kasha, I think a couple people on the CFF.
Maybe you and Kashyap could help support Ben in
Definitely.
getting Stack Overflow stuff set up.
Yeah, like in theory, like this is the kind of stuff that needs to go back, and like individual dev teams will eventually need to have visibility into this and be watching it as they come in, right? Like somebody's going to ask for a Node thing or a Java thing, and so it's not simply the documentation team per se, but as a place to get started, I think that's good.
Just meant for setting it up.
Yeah.
And Ryan, are you still our Slack admin as well?
Yes.
Okay.
I've started and tried to restart the conversation of handing over the Slack instance to the CFF a couple times. I'll poke the bear again.
You got it.
See if you can get him to pay for it when you do too. That might be a harder ask. Didn't have...
Yeah. We want team aliases, and that's like a pay for feature. So it's definitely on my list.
CNCF wouldn't let us do it for cloud native build packs, so
Apparently it's expensive.
Yeah. All right. Next thing on the list is builder versioning RFC.
Yeah, so I guess I'll share my screen really quickly. So can you all see? Yeah, so this is, we have filed this issue that we talked about, I think in the last meeting, which is that we should, there should be a checked-in builder.toml for every released version of the builder, so that you can easily just look at it and like recreate it or add to it or whatever. And so we wrote this RFC that is kind of just like a proposed implementation for what we want to do. So I think what we decided we end up wanting to do is to do the entire thing in GitHub Actions, because we didn't want to have to involve Concourse in this, and we also didn't want to have to force member build packs that are members of the builder to have to implement GitHub Actions logic on their side. So instead of having those build packs send dispatches, what we're going to do is on a schedule, we're going to try to grab the latest tag of each build pack that's in the builder, and then attempt to create a new build pack builder.toml, and then if there's no diff, then just throw it away. But if there is a diff, then commit it, basically. So Yeah, that's basically what we thought, and we thought that would be good because it's the same thing we have to do for the core depth dependency server anyways. So we figured that we can share some logic there.
Yeah, the one other thing that I'd like to add to this, I'll put it in an actual review comment as well. Can you mention that you should do the same thing with life cycles, build and run images, all three of those?
Yeah. I don't know if we're taking those over right now yet, though.
But you can watch for them to change, right? Builder Toml has those things listed inside of it as well.
Sorry. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it would be anything that's inside of the builder.
The run image is just a reference to the latest one, though, so you don't need to watch for that.
You can. I think we should actively not reference latest. We should reference individually versioned
In the builder,
versions of the run in the builder Toml.
And you want to use latest though, so if a new one came out and you rebased, you get it.
The reference is only so that the latest tag, the mutable latest tag, gets passed to the image that gets generated, so that when you run rebase on it, it can find the most updated one. It's not a reference that's intended to be like this exact version. It's strictly intended to be so you always get the latest one when you do a rebuild.
Yeah, and the build one at the very least.
Yeah, it might be, if we wanted to capture the corresponding run image to the build image release in the builder metadata also, we don't need it for anything right now, but it would be supportive of doing that as to be able to have that extra metadata, but it seems like another RFC.
Yeah, I mean, to some extent it doesn't matter, right? Like the run image is never used by the builder itself. It's only the output at the end. So it only matters when it's actually used. So, okay, I step back from that. Life cycle and build image should be hard versioned.
Okay. Cool. Well, I think just, I mean, we're just waiting on approval, I think, from somebody, but I think
I'll go do that.
Are you gonna, when you pull for the latest build pack and stack and everything, are you gonna pull off the images on Docker Hub?
Yeah. We're just gonna ask Docker Hub, like, what's the latest version, and then go based on that.
Got it. Makes sense.
So this was an RFC to the builder repo.
Yeah.
Is that right? And what subteam does that fall under, and who approves those?
We put you, Ben, and Forrest as the reviewers. I'm not sure which subteam it would have been.
I don't know that we have a sub-team that owns, Core Depths currently owns the idea of builders, but we're in the process of taking over that responsibility within, our sort of Buildpacks team.
Yeah, I guess that's implicitly part of this RFC as well, that we'll take over the responsibility for the builders.
So it seems like we need to create another subteam, because the core depth subteam right now isn't going to maintain builders going forward. It's going to be people who deal with build pack logic more. Should we have an RFC for that or something?
Yeah, probably like a builder subteam. Yeah, we could do that, I think, right?
Is there an appropriate subteam that exists already, like tooling, or I don't know if anything matches well?
It could be lumped under tooling, right? There is a tooling team. Runs our GitHub Actions and underlying library work.
Could be tooling.
It just, I don't know if every RFC towards the builder needs to get approved by governance level.
No. This is the intermediate while we don't have everything to set up for the subteam itself.
Whatever you think, though. I don't have a strong opinion about where it goes. I'm just saying we should figure out something for it eventually.
Yep.
Cool.
For sure. Well, that's all. So any questions or any other comments or anything? Cool.
I lost the doc. Is that the last thing on the list today? No. Docs, common concepts.
This is one I put. I've been working on the Java Buildpack documentation for the last couple days, and found myself wanting to explain concepts that aren't really particular to the Java Buildpack, like what is a binding, stuff like that. that I was thinking we should be pulling into a place where we could reference from any build pack, although I'm not sure if all of them, like right now, I think it's maybe only the Java build packs that use bindings, but it is a concept that could be used by other build packs in the future. This is one concrete example of like a couple of a category of questions that I have. And sort of what I wanted from this was to find someone who's working on the non-Java build packs who might want to collaborate with me and look at what I've put in the Java stuff and talk about how we could pull that into a higher level page in the docs.
I'd be more than happy to take a look at some of that stuff with you.
Maybe we can schedule some time.
Absolutely.
We'll sync up after this.
Seems like a content subteam thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've gotten in the spiral of like way overdoing the docs here, but maybe like underdoing them on some level. I got ideas.
Awesome. Anything else? All right, we'll call it early. Thanks, everybody.